Welcome to the Alcohol Minimalist podcast. I'm your host, Molly Watts. If you want to change your drinking habits and create a peaceful relationship with alcohol, you're in the right place. This podcast explores the strategies I use to overcome a lifetime of family alcohol abuse, more than 30 years of anxiety and worry about my own drinking, and what felt like an unbreakable daily drinking habit. Becoming an alcohol minimalist means removing excess alcohol from your life so it doesn't remove you from life. It means being able to take alcohol or leave it without feeling deprived. It means to live peacefully, being able to enjoy a glass of wine without feeling guilty and without needing to finish the bottle. With science on our side, we'll shatter your past patterns and eliminate your excuses. Changing your relationship with alcohol is possible. I'm here to help you do it. Let's start now. Well, hello and welcome or welcome back to the Alcohol Minimalist podcast. With me, your host, Molly Watts, coming to you from, it is an ameliorating Oregon. Yes, that's a synonym for improving, making better. The weather is improving here in Oregon, and in fact, ahead this week, we look to be having our warmest day of the year so far. That's pretty exciting news if you're someone like me who really doesn't enjoy a lot of rain. And trust me, it's definitely going to be ameliorating because it would be hard not to. It's been raining so much the last few days. But it is spring break. And I used to so look forward to spring break when my kids were younger. Boy, just getting out of the normal routine, escaping the weather in Oregon. That's what Oregonians live for that are doing spring break. I'm not doing spring break this week in the technical sense, but I am doing spring break as it comes to the podcast. We are revisiting an episode. We are revisiting an episode from last year in 2024, and it was all about stopping the shame spiral around your drinking. A super important topic and probably one that we don't talk about enough because I know how much it holds people back from making changes and holds people back from recognizing the gains that they are having and still lets them live in the gap. And I've talked about the gap in the game. Look for some Think Thursday episodes and you'll hear me talk about it some more. But when we live in the gains, when we recognize the improvements that we've made, then we are more likely to keep positive momentum moving, to stay motivated, and to keep recognizing small steps as the pathway to sustainable change for the rest of our lives. So stopping the shame spiral around your drinking is super important. I know you're going to enjoy this episode. It's one of my favorites. And so I think revisiting it is a great thing to do. I hope you are having an awesome week, no matter where you are. If it's spring break and you are enjoying that, have a great one. I will see you all on Thursday. Juice peace, everyone. Let's talk about shame. Not something that you may want to talk about, but we're diving into the topic because it's something that affects so many people when they are trying to work on changing their relationship with alcohol. I mean, if you have ever felt ashamed of your drinking habits, you are certainly not alone. I definitely was ashamed of my drinking. Ashamed mostly because I was ashamed by what I thought it meant about me. We're going to dive into that, but also what shame means for those of us who struggle with overdrinking and who feel stuck in an unbreakable habit, right? Stuck and like you're not capable of changing it. And I know that for me, that was how I felt for decades. And we need to know how to stop that shame spiral and how we can start taking some small steps and positive steps forward. So let's first start by just defining shame, all right? I love Brene Brown's, her definition of shame. If you don't know who she is, I don't know feel like you'd have to be living under a rock at this point to not know who Brene Brown is. She's written wonderful books, and she has a Netflix documentary, or at least it's a show on Netflix. She is actually a research professor and an author, and she has studied shame very extensively during her tenures and during her work. And she describes it as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. So shame is different from guilt, because guilt says, I did something bad, whereas shame says, I am bad. And that distinction is really crucial, because while guilt can motivate us to change our behavior, shame often paralyzes us and makes us feel stuck. For those of us that are over drinking or who are drinking and can't seem to get out of the pattern, shame might sound something like this: I'm weak because I can't control my drinking, or I'm simply a bad person. I am diseased. I am sick. I am weak. I am broken because I drink too much. Sound familiar, right? Some of that AA narrative, you're powerless. Powerless feels shameful to me. I don't know about you, but it does to me. And these thoughts, right? The thoughts like I'm weak, I'm bad, I'm worthless, I'm powerless. They create a vicious cycle where the shame itself then drives us to drink more as a way of dealing with those uncomfortable feelings. And that is really at the heart of why shame is such a vicious spiral, especially when it comes to alcohol misuse. Shame can have a profound impact on our drinking habits. When we feel ashamed, we're more likely to hide our behavior. Who out there is hiding drinks from your spouse or from your kids or from your friends? When you're out drinking, you're like trying to pretend like you have a drink before you ever go so that they don't see how much you're drinking. When we feel ashamed, we are likely to hide, which can prevent us, right, from being honest with ourselves. It can prevent us from seeking help, and it can prevent us from taking positive steps towards changing our relationship with alcohol. The secrecy and the hiding can lead to increased isolation, and ironically, it can lead to more drinking because we are trying to numb away the feelings of shame. And that is where I see so many people get stuck in that negative emotion cycle. Shame definitely makes us feel like change is impossible, right? If we believe that our drinking problem is a fundamental flaw of our character, if we believe that we are truly broken, that we are somehow different, it can be hard to imagine a future where we have a healthy relationship with alcohol. And that sense of hopelessness can be incredibly demotivating. So I get it. Trust me, I get it. I was there with you. We have to be able to acknowledge that we are experiencing shame, and then we have to try to figure out how we can take actions to stop ourselves, right? We have to separate our thoughts from our person, who we are. That is what I talk about all the time. When I say you've got to become a better thinker, it means that we need to step outside of ourselves and observe our own thoughts. And you are capable of doing that. That is one of the absolute gifts of our beautiful, brilliant human brains. So here are a few strategies for stopping shame and stopping a shame spiral. Number one, you have to acknowledge that feeling. You have to name the feeling of shame. By bringing that feeling into the open, you can start to address it. As Brene Brown says, shame derives its power from being unspeakable. I want you to hear that again. Shame derives its power from being unspeakable. When we speak about it, we diminish its power. So acknowledge your feeling, acknowledge that that sense of powerlessness and how those thoughts create the feeling of shame, and then let's diminish its power. Number 2, you hear me talk about it all the time, but we have to practice self-compassion. We have to treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer a friend. And we have to remember that struggling with our drinking, struggling with changing our relationship with alcohol, off-plan drinking, missteps along the way, they do not make you a bad person. They do not mean that you are not capable of change. It is a common thing that happens. Most of us, me included, off-plan drinking is normal. It is a part of the process. Expect it and get yourself prepared with how you're going to learn from it, how you're going to use it, how you're going to frame it. Self-compassion can reduce the intensity of shame and help you feel more motivated to change. Just a quick break to talk with you more about Sunnyside. Did you know that Sunnyside uses science to help you reach your goals by focusing on 3 scientifically proven superpowers that you have? Number 1, the power of pre-commitment. Each week you set an intention for the week ahead that includes a tracking goal, a drink goal, and possibly a dry day goal. Number 2, the power of conscious interference. You'll learn the habit of tracking each day as soon as you finish it, which creates a mindful pause before you start the next day. And number 3, positivity. We know that this is a big step that can be tough at times, right? And that's why Sunnyside offers coaching through SMS and email to give you support, advice, and motivation. You can check out a free 15-day trial at www.sunnyside.co/Molly. That's www.sunnyside.co/Molly. Another way to stop the shame spiral is to seek connection. You hear me talk about it all the time. I encourage you to get involved with the Facebook group, Alcohol Minimalists. I encourage you to get into one of my group programs, Making Peace with Alcohol. Shame thrives on isolation. If you feel isolated and alone, I guarantee you, this is how you need to combat it. You need to connect. You need to reach out to friends, to a mentor, to a coach, to a support group. Sharing your experiences with others can help you realize that you simply are not alone. And there are many people that understand what you are going through. And again, it will help you realize some of the things that I like most about my Facebook group. I just had somebody comment on it, saying they've been in other groups, and every time they talk about off-plan drinking or over drinking or not sticking to their plans, somebody comes in and says, you should just stop drinking altogether. You really should be sober. And they hated it and they leave the group. What I love about the Alcohol Minimalists is we simply are all about learning to incorporate alcohol in our lives in a way that makes a peaceful relationship. And you get to determine what that means for you. I am always going to talk about low risk limits, but we are not there telling you that you can't do it. We are there telling you that you can. And there are plenty of people, not just me, who are in that group who are living, breathing examples of what it means to be an alcohol minimalist. So please seek connection. Do not remain isolated. We have to challenge our shame-based thoughts. When you notice those shame-based thoughts, we have to take issue with them. Ask yourself, what else is true? What else is true? Are these thoughts even true, or are they exaggerated? Is my brain catastrophizing? Is my brain is looking at it from a negative bias? All of these things are ingrained in that lower primitive brain, and we have to tap into the higher logical prefrontal cortex to be able to tell ourselves. And instead of thinking, I'm weak because I can't control my drinking, try thinking, I'm struggling with drinking right now, but I have the strength to seek help and to make changes. Okay? We have to focus on progress, not perfection. Progress over perfection every single time. Change is a process, and it is okay to take small steps. Small steps lead to big changes. If you want to create sustainable change, trust me, slower is better. Celebrate your progress no matter how small and be patient with yourself. Perfectionism can fuel shame. So try not to focus on trying to, be absolutely perfect in your process. You're not going to be perfect in the process. You are going to make mistakes, and that is absolutely okay. In fact, it's where you want to be. In my Facebook group, somebody made a post and she said, Molly, everything you talk about really resonates with me, but I just feel like I should be able to quit drinking on my own. I'm ashamed that I can't seem to get my act together and stop this by myself. And, when I read that, I really get it. I do. Because if you have a difficult relationship with alcohol, if you're trying to quit or you're thinking about it, there are two things that might potentially create a lot of shame. First, there's just the fact that you are drinking beyond low risk limits. You're drinking in your mind too much, and what you think that means or says about you. And then there's the shame of trying to change something and not being able to do it, right? So you've got this shame of overdrinking and the shame of not being able to stop. It's like it's two things for the price of one, right? And you're asking yourself, like, what does this mean about me? Let me tell you, it really doesn't mean anything at all. But I know it's hard to believe that when you are in the thick of it, when you are beating yourself up for over drinking. But what I want you to understand is that at the heart of all of this, there is this belief that I believe you've probably learned from the narrative of the recovery industry, that something is really truly wrong with you for repeatedly drinking alcohol in the way that you do. You think that you lack self-discipline, that you just haven't got self-control that everybody else seems to have. And that really can feel awful, doesn't it? What if the truth was that it's just what you have literally trained your brain to do? You've been using alcohol as a coping mechanism for years, and it makes perfect sense that it's hard to change. It makes perfect sense that that's how you're using alcohol still, because drinking is the thing that you do after a tough day, after a long work week, when you're stressed, when it's Friday, when you're lonely, when you're grieving, whatever it is. And that's how you're getting through, right? That's how you've been getting through. And you probably rely on alcohol for good times too, right? Because that's totally normal. We're trained to, if you've listened to any of my episodes on alcohol core beliefs, you know that we believe these things, they're unconscious, they're right in the background, fueling our desire. And we are trained, we're absolutely trained from the time before we ever pick up a drink. We're taught by our parents, by society, by television, by everything around us to see booze as something fun, as it's sophisticated, it's exciting, can be a reward, right? So why wouldn't you want more of that? Is it any wonder, right, that it's not about you? It isn't about you. It's about all the stories, all the unconscious beliefs, and it is completely understandable why you have created a relationship with alcohol that has become something more than what you initially set out for it to be. It's now that you've got to this point where the side effects of using alcohol have just become too much, right? They are too costly. And so you're looking to change that. That is okay. Tell me, what is shameful about that? What is shameful about being intelligent, being self-aware, wanting a better quality of life for yourself, having some guidelines, having some belief, and saying, alcohol is actually becoming something for me that is a habit that is no longer serving me. I think that I might be ready to make some changes, and I think I can upgrade my life by reducing alcohol by eliminating this worry and this anxiety. I am ready to make a peaceful relationship with alcohol. There are a lot of times and a lot of things that we do for a lot time in life, and then we get to a point and we say, you know what? This just isn't really working for me anymore. And that's all it is with alcohol. There's nothing wrong with you. It's a coping mechanism that is no longer serving you. And I promise you, if you can get it into your mindset, that way shame will be stopped in its tracks. So a little bit more from Brené Brown. She emphasizes the importance of vulnerability in overcoming shame. She says that vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. By allowing ourselves to become vulnerable and share our struggles, we open the door to connection and support. So again, seeking out a coach or a mentor or a group and sharing and getting feedback and also giving feedback, sharing your story with other people. You can be a source of encouragement for others. Another expert, Dr. Kristen Neff, who has done extensive research on self-compassion, suggests that self-compassion can be a powerful antidote to shame. In her book, Self-Compassion, The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself, she outlines how practicing self-compassion can help us be more resilient and less likely to be overwhelmed by shame. I will link a couple of Brené Brown's books and Dr. Kristen Neff's book in the show notes too. Back in 2019, when I started doing the work on my relationship with alcohol, I can remember feeling really ashamed of and wanting to hide my drinking habits, especially from my friends, from my father. And you know, it wasn't like I was somebody that you would have ever looked at and thought, oh, she has a drinking problem. But I did typically have a few IPAs each night, and I often ended up drinking more than I intended, and definitely more than I knew was healthy, more than I knew that I wanted to be drinking. And I really felt like the shame of it, the belief that I couldn't change that habit is what kept me from being honest with myself. And it wasn't till I started acknowledging this belief, this self-limiting belief that I had about my ability to change and how demoralizing and how, it just simply took out my desire to work on change because it felt like I was never going to be able to do it. It was not a fact. It was just simply the narrative and the self-limiting stories that I'd been telling myself for so very long. I really think that the way that I was able to start making change happen for myself, it started when I stopped believing all of my stories, all of my shame-based thoughts. Now, here are some practical steps that you can start today to start overcoming shame and changing your drinking habits. They are a little bit different than what we just talked about. They are just some practical guidelines. Number one, you've got to journal. You have got to journal your thoughts. You've got to write them down, connect the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions. And this can really help you identify and challenge some of those shame-based thoughts. Number two, you've got to set small goals. You hear me talk about it all the time, but the doable drink plan, you want to start with something. You got to meet yourself where you're at, and then we're going to make small incremental improvements. If you didn't hear the last couple of weeks' episodes, we talked about the power of continuous improvement. We talked about why you're not making change yet. Those are really powerful in helping you understand the value of the doable drink plan. I want you to also be prepared to use the off-plan plan. That is where we are going to practice compassion and curiosity. We're going to get curious with ourselves. When we drink off-plan, we're going to get very clinical about it. We're not going to listen to our narratives. We're not going to fall for the story of, oh, it was just awful. It was terrible. I totally blew it. We're going to look at it very specifically. We're going to say, oh, okay, my plan was for 3 drinks and I drank 5. Whatever it is, I want you to work with the off-plan plan. I want you to practice mindfulness, whether that is meditation or deep breathing or, just getting outside and going for a walk. That kind of behavior is something that helps us, again, just shore up our mental state, right? We got to shore up our brain's health. We got to shore up our emotional resilience so that we can not continue to turn to alcohol to try to solve how we're feeling. And the last one here is I want you to educate yourself. I talk all the time about learning the science of alcohol and learning its effects on the brain, learning about neuroscience. Once you understand the power of neuroplasticity, once you really believe that you are capable of changing your brain and changing your brain physically, changing your brain's pathways, changing your brain's stories, it becomes so much easier to change your behavior. And understanding the brain's science, understanding the science of alcohol can help really demystify this process and also reduce the feelings of shame. Once you understand how the brain works and why the brain, is seeking dopamine, why it's seeking the alcohol by volume, the blood alcohol content, and where that negative consequence starts to outweigh any positive euphoric feeling. When you understand the science, it gets a lot easier to stick to goals, stick to your mindful drinking plans. Now, remember that overcoming shame, much like changing your drinking habits, is going to take some time. And it's okay to take it one step at a time. By acknowledging your feelings, practicing self-compassion, seeking connection, challenging those shame-based thoughts, you can start to break the cycle of shame. And while you're at it, you can work on changing your relationship with alcohol and creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol. Really, truly, again, it's a habit, right? I, for one, and I know so many of the people that I talk to and work with are exactly the same. I was somebody who talked to myself negatively all the time. It was a terrible habit. It was a terrible way to live, and I was stuck in it. I was constantly critiquing myself, constantly being critical. And truth be told, I still have to guard myself against it. Once you have these tools, once you master the behavior map result cycle, it really is a meta skill for life. And I use it all the time on myself still. I have to talk myself out of some of the shame-based thinking and self-limiting beliefs that I've had for a really long time. And that's okay, because I've got a toolbox to do it. For me, I no longer turn to alcohol, but I have other ways that I know that I can process things better, and I work on it all the time. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing in my mind. I really hope you found this episode helpful. I hope that you will start challenging some of those shame-based thoughts and not let yourself continue to stay stuck. I hope that if I can answer any questions, you can always reach out to me, molly@mollywatts.com. Like I said last week, you can go to the website. You can leave me a voicemail. Somebody did recently this week, and I loved it. I loved hearing from you. So take me up on it. And if you just want to have a talk about how I might best support you, again, email me, and I'm happy to do that too. All right, my friends, that's all I have for you this week. I hope wherever you are in this world, I hope it was a great weekend. I know we had a long weekend here in the U.S. They had bank holiday over in the U.K. I hope wherever you are, you got to enjoy yourselves. And until next week, choose peace, my friends. Thanks for listening to the Alcohol Minimalist podcast. Take something you learned from this week's episode and put it into action. Changing your drinking habits and creating a peaceful relationship with alcohol is 100% possible. You can stop worrying, stop feeling guilty about overdrinking, and become someone who desires alcohol less. I work with people in 2 different ways, and you can learn about them over at my website. Go to www.mollywatts.com/workwithme, or reach out to me directly. Shoot me an email, molly@mollywatts.com. We'll jump on a call and decide what might work best for you. This podcast is really just the beginning of our conversation. Let's keep it going. If there's one thing I know, it's that change is way easier when you stop trying to do it alone.